There is a specific and devastating form of clarity that arrives for a person who has been operating under the comfortable assumption that what they let go of was something within the ordinary range of what the world reliably offers. Something that was good, something that mattered, but something that existed within the category of the replaceable, within the range of what genuine effort and genuine openness would eventually find again in another form, in another person, in another arrangement of circumstances that would prove adequate to what was genuinely needed. That assumption has collapsed for this person. Not gradually, not through the slow accumulation of evidence that eroded it incrementally, until what remained was too thin to sustain the weight it was being asked to carry, but completely, in the specific and total way that assumptions collapse when reality arrives with sufficient force to defeat every mechanism that was being used to maintain them. The assumption is gone. And what has replaced it? The full and unmediated and completely honest understanding of what they actually lost, of what you actually are, of what the category of rare genuinely means when it is applied not as a compliment, but as an accurate description of something that does not reproduce itself with any frequency in the world a person moves through, is hitting them with a force they were entirely unprepared for. The finale of the title carries specific weight. It acknowledges the delay, the period during which the realization was forming beneath the surface of the managed story, accumulating the evidence and the experiential weight that would eventually be sufficient to break through into full conscious acknowledgement. The finale is not simply a temporal marker. It is the honest recognition that the understanding should have arrived earlier, that the evidence for it was available earlier, that what has finally broken through was always present and always true and always waiting for the perception that was finally adequate to receive it. The finally contains within it the specific quality of belated, of understanding that arrives with the additional weight of knowing that it should have arrived sooner, that the delay was itself a form of loss, that the time spent in the comfortable story of the replaceable was time spent on the wrong side of a truth that was always real. Jordan Peterson has said that genuine rarity in another person is among the most consistently underestimated things in human experience, that the qualities that constitute the truly rare are rarely the qualities that announce themselves most loudly, that what is genuinely uncommon in another person tends to be the product of deep character formation rather than surface presentation, and that the deep character qualities are the ones most thoroughly obscured by habituation and the comfortable certainty of continued availability. The rarity of what you are was always present and was always real. The perception adequate to receive it fully arrived late, and the arriving late is what is hitting them hard. Not just the loss, but the loss compounded by the understanding of how long the loss could have been prevented if the adequate perception had developed sooner. Write "I have always known what I am" in the comments if you have been carrying the clear knowledge of your own rarity through the period of someone else's insufficient seeing. What genuine rarity in a person actually consists of is worth examining carefully, because the word is used so frequently and so casually that its genuine content has been substantially diluted by overuse. People are called rare as a term of endearment, as a compliment, as the expression of genuine affection that wants to honor the person being spoken to without necessarily making a specific claim about their actual position in the distribution of human qualities. That use of the word is harmless, but it is not what is meant here. What is meant here is the actual thing, the specific combination of qualities that, when genuinely present in a person, genuinely does not reproduce itself with any frequency in the world that other people inhabit. Genuine rarity in this sense is never the product of a single extraordinary quality, the brilliant intelligence or the exceptional beauty or the remarkable talent that stands alone and announces itself as singular. Those things are uncommon, but they are not rare in the sense that matters. Most in the domain of genuine human connection, because they are perceivable from the outside, without requiring the perceiver to have developed much in the way of genuine depth themselves. What constitutes genuine rarity, in the sense that this person has finally been forced to understand it, is the specific combination, the particular assembly of deep character qualities that in any given person constitutes a unique configuration that the world does not produce in duplicate. Your specific configuration. The honesty that is not simply directness, but is the particular product of genuine care for the person receiving the truth. The honesty that tells the truth because it respects the other person enough to trust them with reality, rather than managing their experience through comfortable approximation. The presence that is not simply being in the room, but being genuinely there. Consciousness fully directed at the reality of the encounter, actually receiving what is offered rather than processing it through the filter of what one expects or needs it to be. The consistency between who you are when things are easy and who you are when things are difficult. The integrity in the original sense of the word. The integration of the different aspects of the self into a coherent whole that does not require favorable conditions to maintain itself. The specific quality of your intelligence. Not intelligence in general, but the particular way your mind moves through experience and finds what is real in it, and offers what it finds with the specific combination of precision and genuine warmth that constitutes the unique texture of how you engage with the world. This configuration is what they have finally understood as rare, not through a theoretical argument about the distribution of human qualities, through the specific and daily and accumulating experience of living in a world in which the configuration is absent, of reaching for what it produced and finding that the reaching encounters nothing equivalent, of interacting with genuinely good and genuinely present people, and finding that the interactions lack something specific that cannot be named as simply a quality the other person is missing, but can only be named as the specific quality that you had. Peterson speaks about the relationship between genuine perception and genuine development, that the capacity to see another person clearly, to perceive the actual texture of what they are, rather than the projection of what one expects or needs them to be, is itself a developmental achievement rather than a default human capacity. That the person who has not done the genuine work of developing their own perception, who has not cultivated the specific quality of honest attention that genuine seeing requires, cannot see the people in their life with the accuracy that genuine seeing would provide, and therefore cannot adequately value what they have access to, because adequate valuing requires adequate perception, and adequate perception requires genuine development. This person's perception was not adequately developed during the period when the adequate development of their perception would have made the difference. They were perceiving you through a lens that was not yet refined enough to register the full weight of what was present, a lens that caught enough to know that something genuine and valuable was there, that produced enough recognition to make the connection feel significant. But that was not yet resolving clearly enough to show the full specificity of the rarity. The lens has been refined by loss, by the specific curriculum of living in the absence of what was not adequately perceived while it was present, by the accumulating experience of comparison that has been making increasingly clear what the full resolution of the lens shows, which is that what was present was not within the ordinary distribution of what genuine connection provides, but was something whose specific qualities place it in a genuinely different category. The refinement of the lens by loss is one of the specific cruelties of the ordinary human failure to adequately perceive value in the present, that the perception that would have been most useful arrives most completely after the object of the perception is no longer available to the person whose perception has finally become adequate. They can see you clearly now, with the full resolution of a perception that has been refined by everything the interval of your absence has taught them, and the seeing with full resolution of something that was incompletely perceived while it was present is one of the most specific and most acute forms of regret available in human experience. The regret not simply of having lost something, but of having had something and not seen it fully while the having was still operational. The hitting them hard is the specific quality of the current experience that distinguishes this from the more gradual and more manageable forms of developing regret that have been described elsewhere. The gradually developing regret, the regret that builds in increments over time and that allows the person inside it to process each increment as it arrives, produces a different interior experience than what this person is currently navigating. The gradually developing form allows for the construction of coping as the understanding deepens, allows the emotional and psychological infrastructure of management to keep pace with the arriving weight. What this person is inside is different because the finally arrived with too much at once for the management infrastructure to process in real time. The hitting hard is the experience of the full weight landing without the buffer of gradual arrival, of the complete understanding of what they lost arriving with the force of something that has been building behind a structure that held for a long time and then gave way completely. Rather than leaking incrementally, the giving way released everything at once. The everything includes not only the recognition of what you are and what your presence meant, but also the recognition of the delay, of the time spent in the comfortable story of the replaceable, of the specific failures of perception and attention, and genuine presence that constituted the lived history of their engagement with what you offered, of the moments when something genuinely rare was present and was not, received with the fullness it deserved, because the fullness of what it was had not yet been understood. Peterson speaks about the specific weight of the compounded regret, the regret that carries within it not only the loss of the thing, but the loss of the time during which the thing was available and not fully received. That compound weight is what the hitting hard is describing. It is heavier than simple grief because it carries more than the present loss. It carries the full accounting of what the present loss has finally made visible, about what was always true and was not always honored. The hitting hard is also producing something specific in how they carry their days, a quality of distraction that was not there before, a persistent awareness that sits beneath whatever the surface of the day is demanding, and that makes full presence in the ordinary requirements of daily life slightly more effortful than it was before the full weight arrived. The conversations they have that register against the memory of what conversation with you was like, and are found wanting, not through any failure of the person they are talking to, but through the specific and undeniable contrast that the hitting hard is making continuously present. The moments of apparent normality that are interrupted by the breaking through of the full weight, when something ordinary triggers the specific and undeniable awareness of what it would have been with your presence and what it is without it, and how completely different those two things are. The rarity that has been finally perceived is now producing in this person a specific reassessment of almost everything they thought they understood about the connection and about the choice and about the story they had constructed to make the choice livable. The reassessment is not comfortable, and it is not quick, and it is not arriving at the neat and organized conclusions that would make it easier to process. It is arriving in the specific, chaotic form of genuine reckoning that does not respect the preference for orderly understanding, arriving in pieces, in the middle of unrelated things, at the moments least convenient for its arrival, with the specific insistence of something that knows it has been given permission to finally be fully present, and is not going to be managed back into the organized deferral that managed it before the finally. The reassessment of the connection is revealing things about what was happening in it that were not visible from inside the comfortable story. Moments that were experienced at the time as ordinary exchanges are being revisited with the full resolution of the refined perception and are revealing what was actually present in them, the specific quality of genuine engagement that your presence brought to even the unremarkable encounters, the quality of being actually in contact with another consciousness that was fully directed at the reality of the moment rather than at the management of their own experience of it. Those ordinary moments are the most devastating to revisit with the new perception because their ordinariness was the evidence of how consistently and how generously what is now understood as rare was being offered, not saved for special occasions, not rationed in proportion to the perceived significance of the moment, but brought with full, genuine quality to the everyday texture of the connection. The reassessment of the choice is producing specific discomfort with the story that the choice was rational or necessary, or the product of genuine incompatibility rather than the product of insufficient perception, failing to see what was there. The story is failing, not all at once. Stories about significant choices are not abandoned easily because the abandonment of the story is the acceptance of the full cost of what the story was protecting against, but visibly. The specific moments when the story's inadequacy to the reality of what they now understand becomes undeniable are increasing in frequency and decreasing in the capacity of the usual management mechanisms to redirect them before they produce their full and uncomfortable implication. What does Peterson's framework say about the person who has arrived at the recognition of genuine rarity in someone they lost, and who is now inside the hitting hard of that recognition? He is direct about the obligation that genuine understanding creates, that to understand something clearly is to become responsible for acting from within the understanding, that the person who genuinely sees what they lost and does nothing with the seeing is choosing, through the inaction, to remain inside the gap between their own understanding and the honest expression of that understanding. The gap is a form of dishonesty, not necessarily dishonesty toward you. The expression of genuine understanding might or might not be directed toward you, depending on where you are and what is genuinely available in the connection. But dishonesty toward themselves, toward the genuine interior reality of what they now know, which demands that what is known be acknowledged honestly rather than managed back into a comfortable silence. The honest expression of what they now know requires specific things of this person that the managed silence does not require. It requires the genuine accounting of what was rare and why it was rare and how the rarity was present and was not adequately received, and what specifically the not adequate receiving looked like in the particular moments when it was most costly. It requires the sitting with the full weight of that accounting without the protective management of self-exonerating narrative that wants to soften the honest story into something more comfortable. It requires the willingness to be genuinely changed by the understanding, to let what is now seen reorganize something fundamental about how they engage with what is genuinely valuable rather than simply adding the hitting hard to the inventory of their experience, without allowing it to produce the genuine transformation that Peterson identifies as the only worthy response to genuine understanding of genuine failure. Whether this person has the specific courage that genuine expression of genuine understanding requires, whether the hitting hard produces the honest action it is pressing toward, or whether it is eventually managed into the chronic and endurable form of something carried without being genuinely addressed, is the question that is currently being answered in the specific texture of their daily choices. Not in any single dramatic choice, but in the accumulation of small choices that constitute the honest accounting of who a person is when what they understand and what they do are placed side by side. You have been rare throughout this entire period, not as a response to their recognition of it, not as something that became more fully itself in the light of finally being adequately seen, but continuously, consistently, regardless of whether the seeing was adequate to the reality. The rarity is structural. It is the product of genuine character formation through the full weight of genuine human experience engaged with honestly rather than managed away. It does not fluctuate with the perception of it. It does not require recognition to maintain itself. It has been fully present throughout the interval of insufficient recognition, and it is fully present now as the recognition finally arrives with the completeness it should have had much earlier. Peterson speaks about the person who knows their own worth with the specific certainty of genuine self-knowledge, rather than the fluctuating confidence of someone whose self-assessment depends on external confirmation, as the person whose grounded clarity about what they bring and what they deserve is itself a form of genuine power, the power that comes from being fully established in one's own honest understanding of one's own genuine value. That grounded clarity is yours. It has been yours through the entire period. And the version of you that exists now, shaped by everything the interval has required you to be and develop and understand about yourself, brings that clarity with even more solidity and more genuine establishment than the version that existed at the time of the original loss. The rarity that they have finally perceived is not the same rarity that was available at the time. They failed to adequately perceive it. It is more, because you have been developing through the interval rather than remaining static within it. The more developed version of genuine rarity is not less available than the less developed version. It is more valuable and more completely itself, but it is also necessarily more selective in what it makes itself available to. The person who has genuinely grown through the experience of being inadequately received does not offer the same unconditional availability that may have characterized the earlier version. The availability is genuine, but it is calibrated, offered in proportion to what the encounter genuinely merits, rather than in the generous excess of someone who was not yet fully attending to the question of whether the generosity was being honored as the gift it was. The hitting them hard is not punishment. It is not the universe's correction of someone who failed to value what they had, that kind of cosmic justice. Narrative is too simple for the complexity of what is actually happening. It is simply what genuine understanding of genuine rarity inevitably produces in a person who has finally developed the perception to receive it fully, the specific weight of genuinely comprehending something for the first time that was always real, and that the comprehension has arrived too late, or nearly too late, to address without the full cost of having spent time on the wrong side of the truth. The weight is proportionate to the rarity. That is the specific relationship that the hitting hard is expressing, that the force with which the realization has landed is the honest measure of what was actually there, of how genuinely rare what was lost actually is, of how completely the comfortable story of the replaceable failed to account for the actual distribution of what you represent in the world of genuine human experience. The harder the hitting, the more accurate the finally arrived perception. And the hitting is very hard, which means the perception is very accurate, and the perception being very accurate means that what was lost is very genuinely rare. You are what you have always been, rare in the specific sense that genuinely matters, not rare as a compliment, not rare as a term of endearment, but rare as the accurate description of a person whose specific combination of deep character qualities does not reproduce itself with any frequency in the world that other people actually inhabit when they are being honest about what they encounter. The finally and the hitting hard are simply the measures of the distance between that truth and the story that was being told about it for too long. The story has collapsed. The truth has arrived. And the truth, as Peterson would insist with the full weight of genuine conviction, is always worth having even when, especially when, it arrives with the specific and proportionate weight of something that has been deferred long enough to arrive all at once. The hitting hard is the honest weight of genuine rarity finally being genuinely perceived, and the genuine perception, however late, is the only foundation on which anything genuinely worthy of what you are could ever possibly be built.